The Elevate Your Fashion Career Workshop Series is not just today. I'm bringing my entire network to you. So take a look at some of the workshops we have coming up in the future, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for everything from the areas of graphic design all the way through how to get rep by a showroom. So let's take a look at today's course outline. So we're going to really focus on three main sections. Number one, we're going to discuss the design process and expectations. Expectations meaning not only what your factory expects from you, but what you should expect from a good factory. We're going to learn graded specs and construction notes fundamentals. So Charmel Work, I'm going to switch over and she's going to teach you everything about how to construct a good garment and how to convey that to a factory, as well as how we go about figuring out how we want our garment to fit and also how to convey that to our factory. And then we're going to wrap up with factory sourcing. So we take all of that information, but if you have a tech pack and you don't know what to do with it, that can be very daunting. I'm going to walk you through my fail-safe ways of finding a good factory and initiating the sampling process. Okay, let's go. Quick break. Now I need you to go and check your email. Someone from the Black Unicorn team has sent you a zip file containing templates as well as some other documents that we're going to be reviewing in today's workshop. So take a moment and do that. All right, so I know we're mostly talking about tech packs and graded specs and factory sourcing, but before we can even get into any of those areas, it's really important that you understand the design process so that you are setting yourself up for success to not just have a successful clothing line, but to have a successful sampling process. Let's take a look at some of the things I do when I get a customer request. So the design process, of course, is multifaceted, but I always start out with trend research. So I start off on the internet. That sounds like, easy peasy, but let me tell you what I'm looking for when I am doing my internet research. So when you first start out, you need to have an understanding of not just your competitors, but what they're selling, what's doing well for them, and then connecting some dots across those competitors. You want to make sure that you as a designer are bringing something to the table that doesn't already exist in mass, but also has value. So here's some of the things I do when I'm trend shopping online. I go to my competitors' websites. I look and see what they're selling. I look at the colors that they're selling it in. I look to see, are they using the same fabric across multiple different styles, or are they using a lot of different fabrics? I look at the price points, and I always look and see what's on sale, what's new in. So that's just some of the things that I do when I am trend shopping, because that helps me to make sure that what I design will not be such a hard sell to my customer and then again to their end customers. So the next step is I will go shopping in stores. When you go into the store, when you go on site, you begin to realize that it is a completely different experience, obviously, from looking at it on your screen. You see textures in person that don't always come across in the computer screen. You may see some trims on the inside of the garment that, again, you can't always see on the computer if the retailer doesn't take a good picture of that detail. So it's really important to go into the stores and see, touch, and even buy things that inspire you for your clothing line. In terms of magazines, I always look at catalogs and magazines. They're constantly being sent to me from other retailers that I may have shopped at in the past. Take a look and see how they're merchandising things. Sometimes I'm really inspired by color combinations that these other companies put together, and I take that and I put it into my collections. So definitely tear sheets out, take pictures of those things, and that will all come into play in just a minute. It's also important to go to fashion shows and other fashion networking events, because you're going to meet other designers that you can network with, you can share tools and experiences with, and they're going to help you get across the finish line that much faster. Also, it's important to note that the big box retailers like Target, Walmart, Macy's, what have you, they have a very different customer in mind. They are going for mass appeal. But if you can make it to a fashion show or a networking event of some sort, you're going to be able to see the really niche things that you're not going to see in store. Also, color palette. So you need to do some trend forecasting either on Pinterest or on Google. And unless you can afford a color forecasting subscription to like WGSN or to Pantone, then you're going to want to do some internet research. Just type in Google search the season that you're trying to design into and string together some colors that make sense for your brand. Lastly, you're going to organize and compile all of these thoughts. So let's move on to the next page so I can show you what that looks like. So what you're looking at here is an example of a trend board or a mood board. I feel like those are used interchangeable more and more lately. But what we have here is I've done all of my internet research. I've taken pictures of things in the store, and I have compiled all of the things that are going to look best for the client that I'm either pitching or for the specific request that the client has come to me and maybe hasn't given me enough direction so that I know how to design. This is crucial in making sure that you understand your aesthetic and that you understand the direction that you want to take your line. It's okay if it changes, but it's really important to have a plan going forward so that when you get in there and you start sketching, you're not just sort of sketching aimlessly. Last thing to comment is that the colors, these colors are not definite finite colors. This is just me showing my client, this is the color palette that I have in mind for when I do start sketching. Okay, so this next section is one that is near and dear to my heart. My absolute most favorite part of the design process is doing the flat sketches. But I think it's important that you understand the difference between a fashion sketch and a flat sketch. So let's look at some of the criteria. So you're going to want to provide your factory with a professional industry standard flat sketch. So let's talk about what that means. That means that it's proportionally accurate and not exaggerated, not elongated. So in looking at this shirt, because his arms are by his sides, we can't tell if this is a tapered hem, if it's a relaxed fit, what have you. So it's really important that we don't have these details to try to guess around. It needs to be filled with the correct color and texture of your fabric. So up here on the neckband, it's just a solid neckband. We don't know if this is meant to be a gray neckband. Maybe it is a contrast neckband. Or if we are just trying to denote that there is a neckband here at all. Down here in my sketch, you can see that there is a rib texture on this sketch. So it's very clear to my factory that this does need to be ribbed. The next section is accurate stitching and seams. Up here, there are no seams, there are no stitches present. So I don't know if this is a drop shoulder. I don't know if this could be raglan for all I know. But my sketch is very clear that I want a set-in shoulder and a forward shoulder here with a contrast cover stitch or just a cover stitch at all. And then lastly, it must include graphics. So if you want your logo on your shirt, you need to put it exactly on your sketch where you want it. So it takes the guesswork out of your sketches. And this is so important because most factories, I can't say most factories, a lot of factories will not look past your sketch. Some of these lesser established factories will look at that sketch and just go. They will pull a stock pattern, they will pull some stock fabric, and they'll just get going and make guesses on what it is that you want. But this is your first stop towards having a successful design journey. Then lastly, we are going to talk about weeding out just a little bit, and then we'll expand some more. But essentially, you're going to want to get all of your flat sketches for every style just in black and white, and then pair things together that make sense and get rid of anything else. This is going to help you to not waste your time over designing, and then also hopefully not waste your time over buying on styles that maybe don't even make sense with the collection. All right, so now we're going to finalize your color palette. We saw on that earlier trend board that we had some colors picked, but sometimes as you get going, as you really start getting those creative juices flowing, your color palette completely changes. But now that you've got your flat sketches, it's really time to hone in that color palette to core colors, which could be, your blacks and your whites and your grays, and then any pop colors that you want to consider as well. So this will have been identified in your trend research. So you'll see what colors are the most popular, and you're going to want to include something, if not that exact color, something in that vein, because you know that it's a safe sell. So for the purpose of this, I chose a bright neon yellow, a bleached aqua, and a medieval blue, or a really nice punchy navy blue. Then to the right, you'll notice I've got my print selected. I never start designing. I can't say never. It's happened to all of us. But there's nothing worse than when you start designing your sketch and you realize it needs a print. But what print am I going to use? Take your opportunity to do your prints and your colors together, so that even if you wanted to incorporate some of these prints or these colors into your prints, you'll just have everything ready to go in one document. So this is the culmination of all of that work that we just did. We have our trends present. We have some flats that are industry professional flats that our factories are going to be able to see, understand the proportions, and understand exactly what it is that we're trying to convey in our design. And then all of the colorways present here. So this is my last stop to my designer before I start my tech pack. That's not true. This is one of the final stops that I share with my clients before I start my tech packs. Seeing this here is a great representation to the client of the ideas in my head, and there's really no other way to do that than to sketch it out. The last thing that I would like to add on this slide is the weeding out process. It's really important that once you have your final presentation done, that you show your colleagues, you show your professors, you show anyone in your circle that understands your vision and maybe even has the same aesthetic as you, because we are not trying to please the world. We are trying to make a clothing brand that is unique, identifiable, and that is not going to appeal to the masses. That's going to appeal to one customer. So it's important that you get feedback from your peers to make sure that you're, again, not over designing, that you're not over buying, and you're only putting things into the market that are going to be profitable, valuable, and competitive. Let's move on to the next section. So we've got our sketch, and now we really need to think about the materials and the fabrics that we're going to use. So essentially, we are going to make a grocery list. This is a process that I call sketch analysis and materials checklist. So you're going to make a checklist of every detail of your design, from fabrics all the way down to the embellishments. So just like we saw here, I have listed out what I want, but I have not made that, like this, I don't feel like is enough information to tell my factory every single detail about this garment. There's still quite a bit missing. So in my sketch analysis and my materials checklist, this is where I really kind of put into words the fabric that I want to use, so that your factory can send fabric books and available fabric swatches to you. They may not have what you need at the time of sampling. Honestly, I should have put this in bold red, because this next process is to help you convey to your factory what you want, and for them to come back and tell you what they're able to procure at the time of sampling. Your art file setup is a huge part of this. You're going to want to make sure that you take the sketch or the graphic off of your design and you enlarge it, and that you call out the colors, call out the technique, and call out the placement of your design. So that, again, your factory is not having to guess just by looking at your sketch. They know exactly how big it is, the placement, and just everything that they need to know about that particular design. After you have had that conversation with your factory, you're basically ready to start your tech pack. The first thing you need to do is set up your art files. So we're going to go back and we're going to look at the sketch here. Actually, let's go back to here. So this is our graphic. We need to actually enlarge this to be true to scale. So about, I don't know, that looks like maybe about a 10-inch wide, 10-inch tall graphic. And we need to call that out to the factory in an art file, which again, you'll see later in the presentation. Oops. So the art file is where you enlarge your sketch to full size. You pull the graphic or the trims off of the sketch, and you create a professional industry standard art file for your tech pack. The criteria includes you must have your company name and style number present somewhere on that document. If the factory prints that and it gets lost in the shuffle, they shouldn't have to guess whose art file it is. Your graphic or your logo must be true to scale with the size called out. It's very easy to enlarge your graphic and forget to call out the size, the dimensions of the graphic. So it's really important that you have both of those so that your factory kind of has some insurance as to what size you actually want it to be. Your technique must be clarified. So again, if I just have a black unicorn logo, there is nothing to differentiate that logo from. Here, I'll pull to the side and show you. If I actually want some sort of specialty technique on that garment, like some sort of heat seal, or if I want embroidery. So it's really important that you tell your factory the technique that you're thinking. So don't leave that to chance. And then lastly, the placement or position on the garment needs to be annotated somewhere. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Now let's take a brief moment and just allow you to look through what that looks like. The factory needs several weeks for every single step, and this entire process can take up to 5 months on a minimum. Now that is for a very seasoned, very decisive designer. If you are new to this industry, if you are new to being a clothing brand owner, that could take you up to a year of back and forth, of sending things to your factory and them sending things back to you, and then you tweaking and going back and forth. That can take up to a year. So please make sure that if you want a specific launch date, that you're working backwards minimum 6 months to even a year to set you and your factory up for success. All right, so now let's take a look at what the sketch analysis and materials planning checklist actually looks like, or the template, I should say. I've given you this template in your zip folder, so make sure that you download that and open it. I want to challenge you to fill that out with just the information that you have today, because at the end of this section, we're going to look at it filled out together so that you can see what it is supposed to look like and how to really start an intelligent conversation with your factory. Do not feel pressured if you don't know how to answer everything. The next few slides are going to explain to you how to fill it in properly. But for now, just as a challenge, I would love for you to try to fill it in on your own. So take a moment and do so. All right, so now let's talk about some of the industry pro tips and tricks that I use before I start my tech packs. I know you're thinking, wow, we still haven't done a tech pack, but there's so much that goes into doing a tech pack well, and I want to set you up for success. So let's take a look at some of the things that I do before I start my tech pack. Let's quickly look at size categories. It's really important to know who you're designing for before you really get too far down the line, because anyone can make a beautiful sketch in Illustrator, but really understanding the market and the fit that you're going for is very important. So for women, as you can see, there is an array of different size categories. Take a minute and browse some of these size categories we have for just women alone. For men's, there are fewer categories. And again, this is only two of, a good handful of men's as well. But essentially we've got men's big and tall, and then of course children's. So this I just kind of grouped into one category, but you have children sizes that are like infant all the way through, maybe even junior high, that go all the way through youth. Next, we got to talk about pricing. It's really important to think about this in the beginning, because there's, again, nothing worse than when you design something, you get to the end and you realize you can't afford it. It's so important to be thinking about how you want to price this in the end so that you are designing it in a way that makes sense for the end goal. So let's look at some different pricing. So first up, we have luxury. So these are going to be the most exclusive brands coming out of the fashion houses in Europe and all over the world, but like the most high-end prestigious brands that you're only going to be able to get at the most high-end prestigious retailers. Usually these are super duper high-end materials, super high-end construction techniques, and essentially the brand name coupled with the very, very nice construction and the really rich fabrics and trims and things that are used results in a higher price tag. Next, we have the designer category. It's maybe a half step underneath luxury. It's still very, very expensive, but still usually super high-end fabrics and techniques. And these brand names are usually only sold in exclusive retailers as well. I threw this category in here, which I'm calling boutique. Um, so boutique tends to be very expensive and very exclusive, but for a different reason. Boutique styles are usually only small batch. You can't get them in many places because they're made with artisan techniques and they're usually not mass produced. They're usually just made in very small batches. So that again accounts for the higher price tag, but it's also something very unique that you know you're not going to be able to find, across the world. Then we have mass market. So this is the one I think all of us maybe watching this are going to be the most familiar and the most comfortable with. And that's like our Targets and our J.C. Penney's of the world that produce a quality product. They have high standards, but the price tags are usually a little bit lower and more affordable to the everyday person. However, a lot of places are really taking measures to make sure that they are producing things that are ethical and sustainable. So even though the price tags might be a little bit lower, you usually are not sacrificing the quality of another human life somewhere across the world to wear these things and to wear these brands. And then lastly, the dreaded fast fashion. Fast fashion, I think, has really, everyone knows what it is and everyone knows how incredibly damaging it is to the people that produce it, and then also the amount of waste that it creates. So fast fashion is very, very low pricing. It's mass produced in ridiculous amounts, and it's usually replicas of designer or runway styles. So these are all the categories to consider before you start designing. You need to understand these because doing your design intelligently and having the conversation with your factory will go much smoother if they understand the types of materials that they should be using at the start. Okay, so let's talk about some of the sustainability tips and tricks that I use. I am designing with certain things in mind, and I'll let you go ahead and review this on your own. You can pause this and check this out specifically, but I am making sure that I'm designing with natural fibers. If I can, I am requesting recycled fibers, and I'm always looking for certifications on my manufacturer's website. So you're going to see things like GOTS organic textile standards and things in that vein that show you they are working with other partners that have these things in their supply chain. Now let's talk about textiles. One of the most crucial elements of your design is the fabric. If you use cheap fabric on a well-made design, no one's going to get past the fabric. So it's important that you understand what is available, how to apply it, and what to ask for. So textiles, essentially, this is a rundown of what the term textiles means. It's materials either from natural or synthetic fibers that are woven or knitted. It's used in clothing, accessories, and home furnishings. Two categories are natural and synthetic. So your naturals, again, are going to be more eco-friendly, like your cottons and your linens, and synthetic is going to be polyester, acrylic, spandex, etc. And it's important to remember that natural fibers are more biodegradable and synthetic fibers tend to just sit in a landfill for God knows how long. So it's important that you can use natural fibers when you can and synthetic fibers only when you have to. And then there's a couple of more things that I'll let you review on your own time. But natural fibers and synthetic fibers both have their pros and cons. And then knits versus woven fabrics are going to have very different properties that may or may not work for your design. So it's important that you know the difference. So here's a quick rundown of knits and wovens. So I want you to take a minute and review both of these. And then when we get to the tech pack portion, you'll have a better understanding of which one to apply to your design. All right, let's talk about embellishment ideas. If you have a cool garment and you have cool fabric, that's awesome. But sometimes you need something that's really going to pop off the page, and a really cool graphic or some sort of cool embellishment may be exactly what it's going to take to set your design apart from another t-shirt or another fill in the blank. These are just a handful of really interesting embellishment options that are available to everyone at low batch and just really help to differentiate your garment, but are pretty low cost actually. So we have grommets, appliques, engraved metal decals, rhinestones, foil transfers, hand beading, glossy silicone transfers, and final appliques.
We'd love to give a special thanks to our sponsor, Cliché, for donating the pack of heat seals that you saw at the beginning of our video. Their support has been invaluable, and we encourage you to check out their amazing products. If you're considering something outside the box for your design, we highly recommend a heat seal from Cliché.
Okay, so now let's take a look at some print and dye options and some maybe fabric washes that you can also consider to continue to elevate your designs. Okay, so now we're going to talk about streamlining the process. I've taught you everything that I do, but when I first started out, everything was on my desktop and everything was up here or in a journal. So now allow me to show you some of the subscriptions and some of the tools that I use in my everyday life. Okay, so it is time for a design overview, and we're going to review and apply all the things that we just learned into the sample overview document. So pull out that blank template, the one that you filled out actually, and let's take a look at how yours compared to my finished example. So let's go through both of my examples. This is just page 2. Page 3, the labels and hang tags page, may or may not apply to you at the time of you starting your design, but this should apply before you have your conversation with your factory. So on the left, we have the men's oversized tee. I have put a picture of all of the fabrics that I want. So the body fabric, this is a picture of jersey, which you can't really tell from here, but if you zoom in on the finished version in your zip file, you can see this. We have the neckband, which is a 1x1 rib. And I have put a picture of performance jersey. The factory will be able to see this when they open it and zoom in and see that I want 3 different fabrics. And down below, I have specified that I want at least a cotton poly rayon blend. and to please send options. I have not specified the color because the factory may not have the exact fabric I want in the exact color I want. I am asking them to send me what they do have before I get too married to this design. So the same goes across for all the fabrics. And then in terms of garment details, again, you can't tell on a sketch what kind of print technique I'm asking for. So I put it down here. You can't tell on this sketch. You can when you zoom in, but there's tiny little hash marks on the hem and tiny little hash marks on the sleeve hem. I know what that means, but again, this is my way of showing the factory I want a specialty hem on this, not just a regular 2-needle stitch, and allow them to tell me, yes, we have that capability. Yes, we have that machinery and an experienced sewer who knows how to do that. Or sorry, we don't have that. This is why I feel like this step is so crucial before you get too married to your design and before you get too far into the tech pack process, because it is very time consuming and it can be very heartbreaking if you do all that work for nothing. Then you'll also see I've done the same thing over here for the ladies. I list out all of my information at the top, which is really just good for like record keeping. I've got my sketch, front and back, and I always stack it. You'll notice that I stack it because it allows you to enlarge the sketch a little bit more in the space. And then down here you see the design details that I want on the ladies as well. So now I want you to take a minute, fill out yours to match this if you're following me along with my designs, or take a minute to do this for your design.
I really hope you enjoyed this segment of the Elevate Your Fashion Career Workshop series. Hopefully, you're walking away from this a little bit stronger and ready to tackle your dreams of starting that clothing line. However, if you feel like your head is spinning, head over to blackunicornmerch.com and check out the resources tab for some things that we have to help you along your design journey. I'm so excited to help you along your design journey, and I really can't wait to help you elevate your fashion career.